So time for another quick update, and this probably will be a quick update. I don't have a lot of updating to do really. People have said to me they like the flying videos, so I'll do a little flight as well. One of the things to update you on, you may have seen my Yoko review video. So at the moment I've swapped out the Iris Dynamics force feedback yoke for the Yoko yoke, which I've been reviewing, and it's a fantastic yoke. I'm going to keep it in for a while and play about with it a bit more. So that's one change. It does fit in the cockpit pretty well. What else? The other update, and you won't notice it unless I point this out, unless you're extraordinarily perceptive, this monitor works better now. After I made my comments about how the viewing angle was causing a problem, two different people suggested to me independently that the vertical viewing angle is not the same from the top as it is from the bottom, and actually it's more favourable from the bottom. So if you tilt the monitor away from you in this orientation, you can tilt it further whilst still retaining a good image than if you tilted it towards you. I hope that makes sense. So the upshot of that is I wanted to try taking this side monitor out and rotating it by 180 degrees. Another vote for Dell. You remember when I put these monitors in first, I was celebrating the fact that Dell has this very convenient mounting system that mounts the monitor on a kind of quick release backplate. And fortunately for me, that backplate is absolutely centered on the monitor in both directions, which means that simply removing the backplate, flipping it through 180 degrees, we could remount the monitor from the other direction and it sits in exactly the same position but just flipped over. So that was almost painless to do. Wasn't quite painless. Typically when you're mounting the thing on it, you need a little bit of clearance on one side to slide it onto the mount, and that clearance over this side was almost zero, so I had to set to with a chisel and chisel a little bit out of the frame of the cockpit. But there you go. At the end of the day, that's been very successful. It does indeed provide me with a better viewing angle for this monitor. The monitor was originally shimmed up using all these little washers. So it was shimmed up so it was tilted inwards and also upwards slightly. So it's now completely flat and it's actually flush with this trim panel here between the two monitors. So that looks better, and the gauges are perfectly readable. It is still a limitation, and I mean at the moment I've got my two DC, my voltmeter and load meter, pretty much 2/3 of the way across the monitor, and they are beginning to fade slightly because of that backlighting effect. But we don't want to make too big a thing of that. It's a lot better than it was, and it's perfectly usable. The other thing that I've been doing is playing with the layout of the instruments, just trying to optimize the layout really. When I started this I thought I had plenty of space, but I wanted to get these instruments in an authentic kind of layout for the Twin Otter cockpit as far as I could, and that's meant a lot of resizing down and squeezing things in, and it's fairly authentic-ish at the moment. Now, as I've said in the past, these gauges are created by Russ Barlow from Sim Innovations, really as kind of a flagship project to demonstrate the capabilities of Air Manager, and in particular to demonstrate the capabilities of accessing the LVARs in FSX and Prepared. Now, one of the slight difficulties with this is that Russ and I are working to different agendas really. I've got a hardware cockpit where I have all the switches, but really you know, the way forward for Air Manager is primarily to cater for touchscreen users, and so with that in mind, Russ has built all of his gauges to support input via a touchscreen, and that means, just as an example, if you look at the autopilot gauge here, there's a toggle switch on it, and now if I had a touchscreen I could flip that toggle switch just by touching the switch, but of course I've got the autopilot switch on my hardware panel. Now on this particular gauge it doesn't matter, it doesn't take up any extra real estate, but some of the other gauges they take up more space than is strictly necessary for an output only device. Again, if we just looked over, for example, at the engine panel, we've got boost pump switches, we've got the emergency boost pumps, we've got the regular boost pumps, we've got the fuel selector switch, we've got the wing tank boost pumps, and all of those switches are redundant really in my particular cockpit. So why am I telling you this? Well, it's, you know, it looks nice, it's visually appealing, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's causing a little bit of cramping when I want to squeeze things in. You know, case in point, Ross made a beautiful rendition of the Twin Otter's fire panel, but again it's a bit of a mixed blessing for me, because I've got the switches in my cockpit. Really all I want are the fire warning lights, and although that panel was very nicely done, you know, it takes up too much space, and it means I have to cram other things out of the way. To cut a long story short, I've been doing a little bit of tweaking as well as shuffling of gauges around, and I've come up with a slightly shaved down version of the fire panel, which just has the indicators on it, and also the test switch is visible there. And again, if it was a touch screen I would just touch it there, but so that's a slimmed down version of that particular gauge. And what else have I done? Oh yeah, the yaw damper. You know, again Ross did the whole pitch and turn, the thumb wheel and the dial for controlling the manual mode of the autopilot, and the yaw damper on the same panel. Now that panel just took up more space than I was willing to give up really, and also it meant the yaw damper indicator light was going to be way out of my line of sight. So I've just done a little bit of hacking of my own and carved out that indicator light, and so I can put it in the centre of my cockpit within my line of sight. I'm not really sure what more there is to do in the cockpit for now, so look forward to some more flying videos probably. I think I may get around to doing that end-to-end checklist video, because a couple of people have expressed an interest in that. Now the panel's in a more or less final-ish configuration. But for now, let's go and fly the Twin Otter. We're at Vernonia 05S. We're going to make a quick trip over to Barrow Field, 30OR, just before it gets dark. We've got it set up on the GPS, direct to. So we've got flaps down, we've got trim set, we've got auto feather selected. Let's go. Oops, bit of a bump there. We don't need to be very high, we'll go up to I think 2,500 feet. We kind of go through the valley here. That's 2,000 already. This is a tiny strip we're heading for. If you watch my recent Yoko review video, you'll have seen me do that in the Real Air Scout. We're going to do it in the Twin Otter today for a real challenge. It's barely long enough to do that, but we should be able to get it down. Right, that's 2,500 feet. So we'll trim it forwards a bit, come back on the power. We don't need to be going any higher. So we're coming up on the strip on the left hand side, just down there. We're going to overfly it, more or less. Okay, so we're going to set up the HSI to just remind us of where the strip is. We're going to head out for a couple of miles. So there you go, 2¼ miles out. We're attempting a level turn here, so I'm watching my horizon. Balancing things with the rudder. Not being hugely successful at making this a level turn. But that's okay, we need to descend anyway. Okay, so we're headed back where we want to go. We're going to start by chopping all the power because we want to lose about half the speed we're carrying. You can see the strip just here. So we go around the end of this hill. Okay, we can start to put down the flaps. We're going to want all the flaps for this strip, and we're going to try and fly it right on the minimum speed we possibly can. Which is going to be about 65 knots. We haven't got any wind. I don't think we've got any wind at this strip today. So what I want to do now is just finesse I'm using the trim wheel down here, and I'm on idle. I want to get myself trimmed to about 65. Well, we're about 70 at the minute. We need to slow down a little bit more, I think, or at least drop a little bit more height. Okay. I'm going to come up a little bit on the power just in case I need it. We're right on 67 knots or something. Just got to squeeze over these bushes. Power's there just if I need it. We're over the bushes, power off. Try and get a good flare. Then straight to full reverse and hit the brakes and steer as well, because we've got a bit of a kink in this strip. That was pretty good. We stopped it okay there. So there you go. That's what you can do with a twin Otter.